we now move into architect and plan, which is the second step that you have here. And the first part of that, I think, is probably one of the more fascinating, which is decompose the applications and the services to core elements. What are you actually doing there?
You're just looking for the commonality across your application portfolio, right? Every application has the same components overall, where the data exists, how does it process, what's the client side look like. So all we're doing is we're taking that and establishing a commonality across the largest portion of the application portfolio that we could start standardizing and really focusing on. Because you're not going to solve the problem individually if you have hundreds of or thousands of applications. You're going to look for the least common denominator across the group, which allows you to do that. So database, for example, most applications have a database. In an on-premise legacy world, you have your production database plus your backup, maybe a high availability one. So now, but from a core conceptual, it's all the same thing. So that allows us to start reducing down and focus and solving the database problem rather than, the 1,000 application problem.
Yep, exactly. It's interesting because I think you had 13. I forget the number of layers, but it was it's everything you would think about. You have the physical hardware, the networking, the virtualization layer. I'm going to get some of these wrong. Storage layer, OS, and whatnot. And when you got done that, one of the big findings I found was you came over and said, hey, we have, it was a couple hundred images. I forget the number. Do you remember the number of server images we had?
It was a little over 200 server image builds. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the things when you look at it through a different lens, you're able to see this. Wow, we have a couple hundred images. Well, that's very hard for an organization to maintain that level. And then when you broke it down even further, I think what your team came back and said is immediately we can get this down into the teens because of, if we just do some work around the images. And eventually I think the goal was to get it down to 6. Is that pretty close?
Yeah. So about 200 down to 5 common images. And based on that, now you could automate. You could start leveraging efficiencies because now I'm not spending time chasing after 200 different images across 40,000 server types. I'm chasing down just 5 images, which I can manage the exact same.
And it was really interesting. Before you came in, we were chasing this CMDB nirvana, where we were going to have this CMDB, which would always tell us what was going on in the servers. And you sort of minimize that. You're just sort of like, hey, you know what? If we get down to 5 images, then it's the CMDB becomes not irrelevant, but becomes, first of all, a lot easier to manage. But second of all, I mean, it's one of 5 images.